What's up, guys? So, just a quick review of 2024 The Crow, Bill Skarsgård, FKA Twigs, and Danny Houston. Hopefully, I'm gonna try and keep this spoiler free. I'm gonna be telling you about my top three problems with the movie and why I think it doesn't work. As a purist, I honestly think this movie is a 1 out of 5. I think if you're here, you probably know more or less what the movie is about. That being said, the biggest problem for me, one of the main problems for me with this whole movie is that the lore itself gets changed. As a purist, you know the story, you know the situation, you know the setup, but in this retelling, they're changing a lot of it. They're making a lot of changes. One of the biggest changes that they made is that the crow, and when I say the crow, I am always going to be referring to the bird. I'm going to call Eric by his name, Eric. Shelly will be referred to as Shelly. The crow is always going to be in reference to the bird itself. One of the biggest problems is that in previous films, the crow is the main reason why we're here. The crow is why this person is being brought back to make everything right, to make everything for justice. Okay? It shows you what it needs to show you. It takes you where it needs to take you, and it basically finds the targets for you so that you can do what you need to do. In this movie, the crow itself is essentially a lost puppy following you home. It does nothing. It doesn't interact with Bill in any possible way, with Eric in any possible way. Eric has to play detective to try and find out who it was and why they did it. Because the crow doesn't do anything other than follow him around and watch over him. That's it. That's all it does. It's pretty window dressing in the background just so that we can remember, oh yeah, the bird is here. It's a part of the movie. This is it. This is all he does. That's the extent of it. That being said, that is the main one of the main problems is the fact that you are setting up a story, you are setting up lore that you yourself are going to go back and break. You yourself are going to go back and kind of make it null and void because if you're telling us that the crow is the one responsible for the whole situation and it's doing this because of justice, it's not an active participant in the story. You have him as window dressing in the background. Next, this is a love story. They set it up as a love story. The first 40 to 50 minutes of this movie are setting up their romance. The problem is that there is no real measure of time. It ends up feeling and it ends out playing out as if Eric and Shelley meet and the whole movie takes place in a week. Like they met on Monday, fell in love by Wednesday, canon event on Friday, and the weekend was the revenge. It literally feels like that because there's no measurement of time. There are scenes that set up certain things, but the next one makes it like, you like, for example, let's say they are in their penthouse spending time together and being happy and romantic and all these things. And then the next scene is Shelly running into her friend who reminds her because apparently she hasn't thought about this whatsoever. She totally forgot about the fact that she is being pursued over a recording, um, which is evidence against the main bad guy. But she is reminded that she's being hunted and that they are in danger. Canon event happens. Eric is brought back, and he makes an appearance at her funeral or burial to talk to her mom to try and see who it was and why. When he's brought back, he is in the exact same apartment where they are, but Shelly's body's no longer there. So, again, it's a very weird mixture of not knowing if time passes and how it passes. Because he comes back, she's no longer there, but there is a henchman looking for the recording, but he goes to her funeral the next day and talks to her mom. Again, this whole movie plays out in a week, maybe 2 weeks. So it's only going to be convincing if you essentially feel like in that 1 or 2 weeks, it is possible for two people to fall so completely madly in love that he is willing to do this for her, even though at a later point in the movie there will be a moment where even he second guesses himself because he learns something about Shelley that makes him question the whole thing, and he's sitting there like having an existential crisis of do do I love her? Like, she's not who I thought she was. Am I really gonna do this? Luckily, it only lasts about 30 seconds, and then he goes right back to, oh no, I'm 100% sure I love her, and I'm gonna sacrifice myself for her. This has to happen. How convinced is that? How convincing is that? How are you gonna feel about that? The next thing is that the villain, the head honcho, is a supernatural entity. Like that should be pretty obvious from the trailer itself. The main bad guy is a supernatural being, for lack of a better word, because it's a person that made a deal with the devil where he gets to live forever as long as he corrupts good people and makes it so that they end up in hell. That's it. That's what he does. And you're only shown that like 3 times, but the movie just makes it sound like, oh, this is a bad person. This is someone that like is evil, and we need to go along with that. Like we need to 100% be on Eric's side and be like, oh no, yeah, 100%, dude deserves it. Get it, like vengeance, justice. It's gonna boil down to how willing you are to play along. Essentially, is what I'm saying. As a purist, for me, this is a 1 out of 5. If you consider this a retelling of the story, a, not using the original people, but like if you consider this to be a different Eric, a different Shelley, like a different version of the Crow, then this might be a 2 out of 5 for you. And if you're only there for the action, this is maybe a 3 out of 5. Because it should have been what is essentially without all the aspects of the Crow. If you had just made this a supernatural revenge flick, it would have been straight to DVD and it would have been a 3 out of 5. Because you would probably enjoy it just for the action and story. The only way to fix this movie would be to take all the elements of the Crow out. You already have the villain as a supernatural being, so it's going to be super easy to just make it that for whatever thing, whatever reason, Eric is being brought back to take out the main bad guy to restore balance. And that's even used. Even though the crow is the one bringing him back to set the wrong things right, he's it gets added on like, oh, he is a supernatural being that does this, and you need to restore balance to the universe, or I forget how they phrase it. But side the side quest is that you basically need to fix this because he's evil. I mean, you're a byproduct. You're an asterisk in the story. The real issue is that this guy is doing these things, and there's no longer balance to the force. Yeah, that's the movie. So, how willing are you to play along?